My name is Rachel Mason, and for most of my life, my family didn't see me as a daughter at all. I was the quiet safety net, the dependable one, the bank account they never thanked but always depended on. I lived alone in my small blue two-story house on the edge of Columbus, Ohio. The paint was chipped, the front porch sagged a little, and the railing leaned to the left because I kept forgetting to tighten the screws. Still, it was mine. Bought with my own money, my own work, my own years of saying maybe next month to things I wanted. Inside, it smelled like coffee, laundry detergent, and the faint vanilla candle I lit every night when I came home from work. I had worked 10 years as an operations coordinator for a logistics company, a job that wasn't glamorous but kept the lights on. I earned enough to live, enough to save a little, and without ever planning to, enough to keep someone else's life running too. Because while I paid for the roof over my own head, I also paid for another house across the city. My parents' beige brick home, the one they always bragged about owning, with hard work, even though my name quietly sat behind every major payment. Every month, $1,150 is left in my account for their mortgage. Another $280 went to their power, gas, and water. Groceries? Usually me. The medicine for mom's blood pressure? Me again. Dad's knee surgery copay last year? That was a full paycheck. The home internet bill? Auto-deducted from my card. Even their property taxes, whenever they forgot them, which was often, landed in my lap without discussion. Being the responsible one meant my wallet was always open, even when my heart was tired. On the other side of the family tree lived my cousin Lily. If I were the quiet worker bee, Lily was the golden butterfly. Everything she did was praised. Every mistake was forgiven with a laugh. She floated from job to job, city to city, always with a dramatic story, always with a hand reaching out for help. My mother adored her. She'd say things like, "Lily is having a hard time, Rachel. We should support her." But we never meant we. It always meant me. 2 years ago, Lily got a loft in downtown Chicago that she couldn't afford. Her parents pitched in, but the rest came from family help. What they didn't say was that the family help came from my overtime hours. The vacation I wanted to take that year? Gone because Lily needed stability. I convinced myself it was fine. I told myself I was being a good daughter, a good cousin. I wore the titles so long that it didn't even feel like a choice anymore. Then came the Tuesday that broke everything. I was sitting at my office desk, poking at a microwaved meal that tasted like cardboard, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. No greeting. No explanation. Not even my name. "You are banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize, idiot." I froze. For a full 10 seconds, I just stared at the screen, thinking maybe I had misread it. I hadn't. My fork hovered above my tray, and my heart thudded hard enough that I felt it in my throat. We had argued that morning, but it hadn't felt like something that would lead to this. She had called asking me to cover yet another bill, Lily's car payment. Apparently, Lily had lost her job again because her manager didn't appreciate her creativity. My mother insisted I help because you make more than enough, Rachel. When I told her I couldn't keep doing this, she snapped. She called me selfish, ungrateful, and dramatic. She said family meant sacrifice. She said Lily had enough on her plate already. And for the first time in my life, I told her one word she had never expected from me. No. The silence that followed on the phone had been thick and cold. I thought she would cool off. Instead, I got that message. Banned. From a holiday I had paid for every year. From a house I helped keep standing. Over a bill I had no responsibility to pay. My first instinct was the old one: call her, apologize, fix it, smooth everything over like I always did. But something felt different this time. Something deeper. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the years of carrying burdens that weren't mine. Maybe it was just that one word I had finally said out loud. You pay for their mortgage, their heat, their food, and they banned you from the table. I locked my phone and placed it face down. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. That evening, the November air was sharp as I walked home. Houses glowed with warm windows, leaves crunched under my boots, and somewhere in the distance a dog barked. Inside my small blue house, I brewed tea, sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and signed into my online banking. One by one, with steady hands, I did what I should have done years ago. Mortgage payment, canceled. Utilities, cancel. Internet, cancel. Medical autopays, cancel. Grocery deliveries, cancel. I didn't send my parents a message. I didn't warn them. I didn't explain. I simply stopped being the invisible foundation they stood on while calling me selfish. They had banned me from Thanksgiving. Without saying a single word, I had just banned myself from being their silent lifeline. The house felt warm around me. The tea smelled sweet. And for the first time in a very long time, I wondered what it might feel like to live my own life with my own money and not feel guilty about it. That night, I slept without waking once. Not because things were perfect, but because the first crack of freedom had finally appeared in my life. And everything was about to change. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of Ohio morning where the clouds sit so low they almost touch the rooftops. Every other year, I would have been up by 6, brushing snow off my car, driving across town with bags of groceries that I had quietly paid for. I would have stood in my parents' kitchen, chopping vegetables while my mother complained loudly about grocery prices, then turned around and praised Lily for being so ambitious with her latest career dream. Every Thanksgiving had followed the same pattern. I supplied the money, Lily supplied the charm, and my parents supplied the guilt. This year was different. Instead of waking to my mother's long shopping list, I woke in my own house to silence. A peaceful, stubborn kind of silence. I padded downstairs wearing pajamas and fuzzy socks, turned on the oven, and cooked a small, $12 turkey breast I had bought for myself. It wasn't much, but at least it didn't come with conditions. I curled up on the couch and streamed a silly holiday movie, pretending I didn't care about the empty chair waiting for me at my parents' table. But of course, I did care. I would have been lying to myself if I said otherwise. Even after years of carrying their burdens, a part of me still wanted to be invited, wanted to feel like a daughter instead of an employee. Yet I wasn't going to call and beg after being banned and insulted. For once, I let the ache sit without trying to fix it. Across the city, I knew they were carving a turkey I hadn't bought in a house I no longer paid for, even if they didn't know it yet. That thought gave me a strange sense of balance, like stepping onto solid ground after walking on ice for years. The first sign of the fallout came 3 days later. It was Monday morning. I was at my desk at work, sipping coffee and trying to ignore the strange feeling of lightness in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the caller ID. My mother. I turned the phone face down. A minute later, it buzzed again, my father this time. Then Lily. Then my mother again. Within 30 minutes, I had 6 missed calls. I didn't answer any of them. By noon, the number had jumped to 19. By 4 o'clock, 53. By the time I walked into my house after work and set my phone on the kitchen counter, the total was 87 missed calls. I laughed once, mostly from disbelief, partly from nerves. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the kitchen table, and finally pressed play on the first voicemail. "Rachel, what did you do?" My mother's voice screeched through the speaker. "The bank says the mortgage payment bounced. Are you out of your mind? Call me back immediately." I didn't. I pressed the next message. "The power company called," my father said, his voice tight and unfamiliar. "They said the bill hasn't been paid in 2 months. I thought you had this set on automatic. They're threatening to shut it off on Friday. We need to talk." 2 months. They had no idea how many small emergencies I had patched over without telling them. How many late fees have I had eaten? How many times have I rearranged my own budget just to keep theirs intact? The next message was from Lily. "Hey, it's me," she said, trying to sound calm. "Uncle Mark said you stopped paying for everything. They're freaking out. You know they can't handle finances, Ratch. Can you fix this? Please?" Even then, she still expected me to swoop in and save the day. She said it like I had forgotten a task rather than ended a lifelong pattern of sacrifice. Not a single message asked if I was okay. Not one mentioned the fact that they had banned me from their holiday without a second thought. Around 7 that evening, my mother finally switched to texting. "What is wrong with you? The house could be taken. Your father is sick. We raised you. The least you can do is keep helping. Your cousin has enough stress already." I reread the last line 3 times. Your cousin has enough stress already. The words hit harder than I expected. I thought of the late nights I had sat on my floor with my laptop, adjusting numbers so that my student loan payment and their mortgage could both go through. I thought of the time my mother forgot to pay her medical copay and the collection agency started calling me because somehow they had my number. I remembered the birthday I spent eating ramen because I had covered their property tax bill. Yet in her mind, Lily, the golden cousin, had more stress than I did. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The old me would have apologized, begged them to calm down, and promised to fix it immediately. But the woman sitting alone in that quiet blue house wasn't the same person who had been carrying their world on her back for years. For once, I told the truth. "I'm not paying your bills anymore. I've done more than enough for years. You banned me from Thanksgiving. You can handle your own house now." I hit send before I could soften the words. The typing bubbles appeared instantly. "You are ungrateful. You are ruining this family. You are doing this out of spite. You are punishing us for one little text." I set my phone face down and closed my eyes. My heart was thumping, but not from fear. It felt lighter, like a band had been loosened from around my ribs. That night, lying in bed, I pictured their life without my invisible income. The lights flickered when the late fee hit. The bank is calling about the missed mortgage. The grocery cart was sitting abandoned in the checkout line when the card declined. For years, I'd convinced myself I was keeping the family together. Now I understand something different. I hadn't broken their world. I had simply stepped out of the shadows I'd been holding it up from. And once the truth landed, there was no going back. The showdown came 1 week after Thanksgiving, on a cold evening when the sky looked like torn gray paper stretched over the whole city. I was sitting at my kitchen table finishing a bowl of soup when my phone rang. I recognized my father's number immediately. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail like all the others, but something in my chest nudged me to answer. His voice was tight, almost formal. "Come over tonight," he said. "We need to talk like adults." The choice of words nearly made me laugh. Like adults. After years of being treated like the family's personal credit line, the idea of having an adult conversation felt strange. But I wasn't going for them. I was going because I was tired of being cast as the villain. If a confrontation was coming, I wanted to face it with my own truth, not their version of me. I drove to their neighborhood just before sunset. The trees were bare, the lawns were brown, and the houses looked like they were holding their breath in the cold. When I pulled into the driveway, my stomach clenched. Their beige brick house looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was the knowledge that my money had been the silent support beams holding it upright, but it no longer felt like the home I had grown up in. What really struck me was the bright red notice taped to the front door. A power company warning. For a second, I just stood there, staring at it. That single sheet of paper was the first honest reflection of the truth my parents had ignored for years. Inside, the living room smelled like lemon cleaner, my mother's stress scent. She scrubbed everything when she was overwhelmed, as though a spotless surface could erase the problems sitting underneath. The furniture looked the same as always, but the atmosphere was thick, heavy, knotted with tension. My mother sat on the couch with her arms crossed so tightly her shoulders were touching her ears. My father stood near the window, hands behind his back, trying to look calm but failing. And Lily sat in an armchair, scrolling her phone, though she wasn't really scrolling. Her thumb hovered, frozen, like she was pretending to be distracted. I walked in carrying a black folder. They all watched it more than they watched me. Before I even sat down, my mother spoke. Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "You are destroying us, Rachel." The bank called again. "The power is past due. We cannot live like this. You need to turn everything back on." I didn't react. I simply placed the black folder on the coffee table. The table that I had bought for them 4 years ago, by the way. They never remembered that. When I opened the folder, the quiet crack of the clasp felt louder than her words. Inside were neat stacks of paper, bank statements, credit card histories, payment receipts. 6 years of my life, printed, highlighted, organized into clear sleeves. This, I said, keeping my voice calm, is what I've done for you. Lily stopped pretending to scroll. My father's brow creased as he leaned forward. My mother rolled her eyes, but even she glanced down at the papers with a flicker of worry. I lifted the first page. This is your mortgage, Mom. 6 years of payments. Every month. $1,150. Paid from my account. You can see my name here. My father took the paper when I handed it to him. His eyes followed the highlighted lines, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something real flicker across his face. Shame, maybe. Or recognition. I didn't give them time to speak. Next, I said, taking out another sheet. Your utilities. Power, gas, water, and internet. On average, $320 every month. Also for my account. Then the next page. And the next. My mother's surgery bill. My father's knee replacement payment. Pharmacy prescriptions. Grocery deliveries. Automatic insurance payments. Property taxes I'd covered when they forgot. With each page I placed on the table, the room grew quieter, the energy shifting from anger to disbelief. By the time I reached the final page, their faces looked pale, hollow, like the truth had pulled the floor out from under them. I placed a final sheet, a simple total sum, on top of the stack. In 6 years, I said, I've paid just over $186,000 for this house and your bills. And that doesn't count the random small things I never tracked. Silence swallowed the room. My mother's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. She finally whispered, You never told us it was that much. You never asked, I replied softly. My father sat down on the edge of the couch, rubbing his forehead like the numbers were pounding behind his eyes. Lily leaned forward, staring at the papers as if she were decoding a foreign language. You make good money, my mother said at last, her voice small. You could afford it. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not loudly, but like a thin old thread finally breaking. I could, I said, but I can't anymore. Not financially. Not emotionally. You banned me from a holiday dinner in a house I paid to keep standing. You called me an idiot. You praised Lily for every little thing while I was the one on the phone with the bank at midnight, fixing emergencies you never even knew about. Lily flinched. For once, her charm didn't shield her. I didn't know you were paying for all this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's the point, I replied. Nobody wanted to know. It was easier to let me carry everything and then call me selfish when I finally said no. My father lifted his eyes. What do you want, Rachel? It was a fair question. One I had been asking myself for years without realizing it. I want my life back, I said. I'm not your bank anymore. I'm not keeping you in a house you can't afford. You can sell it, refinance, downsize, ask for help from programs, figure out a budget, whatever you choose. But the money pipeline is closed. I'll help you with the logistics if you ask respectfully. But the payments are over. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You would let us lose everything? I met her gaze evenly. I already lost years of my life to keep you comfortable. Years of savings. Years of peace. This is me stopping that loss. Lily looked between us, her voice soft and shaky. I can pick up extra shifts. I can help with something. For the first time, I saw a crack in her perfection, something human and real. I stood, closed the empty folder, and held it against my chest. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this to protect myself. If you love me, you will respect that. If you only loved me because my money kept your life easy, then you never loved me at all. No one tried to stop me. No one told me to leave. They just sat there, 3 people in a house built on the foundation of my silence, finally realizing the truth. And I walked out into the cold evening air feeling lighter than I had in years. The months that followed weren't dramatic or cinematic. There was no sudden family reunion, no tearful apology at a holiday table, no magical moment where everyone realized their wrongdoing all at once. Instead, what came after was quieter, slower, and far more real than anything I'd imagined. Healing, mine and theirs, arrived in uneven steps, sometimes forward, sometimes backward, but always moving in a direction I didn't expect, toward freedom. During the first week after the confrontation, my phone buzzed constantly with my mother's messages. Some were furious, written in fast, sharp lines. "You've abandoned us. You're cruel. How can you live with yourself?" Others came late at night, dripping with guilt and accusation. "Your father is tired. We don't deserve this. You never used to be this cold." I read them, but didn't respond. For the first time in my life, silence felt like a boundary instead of punishment. By the third week, the messages began to soften. My mother shifted from anger to bargaining. "We'll figure something out if you just help a little longer. Maybe 2 months? Maybe just the mortgage until we can breathe again." I knew that pattern too well. Outrage, guilt, manipulation, desperation. I danced through those 4 stages my entire adult life. But I didn't dance anymore. By month 2, the messages got shorter. "We sold the second car. We're canceling cable. We're trying." They didn't say it directly, but I could feel the discomfort of their adjustment. Reality had finally stepped into the house I used to fund. For them, losing the financial safety net meant learning skills they never developed: budgeting, discipline, accountability. It was painful, but it was the truth they needed. Meanwhile, I quietly began living my own life for the first time. With money no longer draining from my account each month, I felt an unfamiliar sense of air in my budget, space in my mind. I paid off the last of my student loans, a debt I had carried for years but never prioritized because everything else had always felt more urgent. I took my car in for repairs and finally fixed the squeaky brakes that had embarrassed me in every parking garage. Then, on a random Saturday, I walked into a furniture store and bought a new couch, soft gray fabric, wide cushions, no stains or springs poking out. It cost $850, and I paid without guilt. One quiet Friday evening, I sat at my kitchen table, opened my banking app, and created a savings account. I labeled it Future Me, a name that almost made me laugh. I moved $300 into it, then stared at the balance like it was a miracle. The next weekend, I added another $200. For the first time, my money wasn't a secret river disappearing into someone else's life. It was a slow, steady stream filling a well I had never allowed myself to build. Around that time, I made a decision I had been avoiding. I started therapy. Every Wednesday at 5, I sat with a warm-voiced therapist who asked questions no one in my life had ever asked me. What do you need? What do you want? Where do you feel resentment in your body? We talked about guilt and obligation, about being the responsible child who never learned to rest, about the way love becomes a burden when it's only recognized through sacrifice. I paid $120 per session, and for once, the money felt like an investment rather than a drain. Spring came to Columbus, and with it, change. The trees outside my house filled with leaves, the days grew longer, and one evening I found myself sitting on my front steps with a cup of tea, listening to birds settle for the night. In that quiet moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not resignation. Peace. In April, a message arrived from Lily. I almost didn't open it, expecting another request for help, but the words inside surprised me. "Hey, it's me. I picked up a steady job at a clinic. It's nothing fancy, but I'm showing up every day. I wanted you to know I'm trying. Also, I'm sorry for the years I let them praise me for nothing while you did everything." I read it 3 times. Lily wasn't perfect, but honesty from her was new. I typed slowly. "I'm glad you're working. That matters. And thank you. That meant something." We didn't suddenly repair everything between us, but something shifted. A small, fragile bridge replaced the old imbalance. Sometimes that's all healing needs, a single honest step. By late summer, my parents' house had been put on the market, taken down, then put back up again. They argued with real estate agents, disagreed on prices, stalled, panicked, and restarted. Eventually, in early spring, it sold. Not for as much as they had hoped, but enough to clear their remaining mortgage and find a smaller rental house on the other side of town. A modest place with beige siding, a small porch, and no yard to maintain. One evening, my father called. "We moved today," he said, sounding tired but steady. "It's smaller. No yard. But we can manage the rent. I wanted you to know we're not going to sink." I closed my eyes and breathed out slowly. "I'm glad," I told him. "Really, I am." There was a pause, a long, heavy one, before he added, "I didn't understand how much you did. That's on me. I'm sorry." The apology wasn't perfect. It didn't erase years of assumptions and entitlement. But it was real, and that was enough for me to accept it. By the end of the year, my parents invited me to Christmas dinner in their smaller house. "We can't promise it'll be perfect," my father said quietly. "But we'd like you there. No money talk. Just dinner." I thought about it for a week. I didn't want to go out of guilt or obligation. I wanted to choose it. In the end, I said yes. Their new home was modest, a little cramped, but warm. The lights glowed softly, and the food on the table hadn't come from my wallet. My mother was still herself, sharp in some moments, softer in others. But as she passed me the potatoes, she touched my hand gently and murmured, "Thank you. For before. For everything." I was wrong to send that message. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And sometimes, honesty is enough to begin again. That night, when I returned to my own blue house, I stepped inside and breathed the warm, familiar scent of my vanilla candle. My slow cooker hummed quietly in the kitchen, filling the air with the smell of stew I had made for myself. I placed my keys in the small ceramic bowl by the door and looked around at the life I had rebuilt, not from sacrifice, but from choice. For years, I believed that love meant absorbing every blow, paying every bill, carrying every burden. I believed being the good one meant losing myself to keep others comfortable. Now, I understand something different. Love is not measured by how much you give away. It's measured by who respects you when you finally say no, by who stays when you stop carrying their world on your back. I still help people sometimes. I still offer kindness. But now, everything I give comes from fullness, not fear. In the end, I didn't just stop paying their bills. I stopped believing my value was tied to saving everyone. On the other side of that realization, I found something simple and strong. Quiet that felt like peace. Stability that had my name on it. A life built by choice, not obligation. A life where, finally, I chose myself.